Thank you for joining our today's webinar. My name is Dimitri, and I'm a head of product growth at Skyvia. On the webinar, I'm so delighted to tell you about who we are as a company, as a platform, share some product insights and top use cases that you can, so that you can get more out of the platform. So I'm here today with our technical expert, Sergey. He will take the ball once I finish with the demonstration, and would gladly answer any technical related questions that you might have. So feel free to post them as comments in the webinar chat. So let's start from our company story, I think. Well, as you may know, Skyvia is in fact not a standalone company. We are a product of a software company named Devart. The company has been operating since 1997. We developed and launched more than 100 of software products in the fields of data connectivity, productivity, database management, and data services. All these products are helping developers and other technical experts automate their daily routine, deliver faster, and of course, deliver better. We are proud that dozens of our best customers are in the list of Fortune 100 and Fortune 500, such as AT&T, Boeing, Pfizer, Toyota, SpaceX. Well, you can find the full list of our customers on the Devart's website. So most of Devart's products are on-premise. In other words, installable software. In 2014, we took into consideration all the knowledge and expertise that we had by that date and decided to create a brand new and cutting-edge data integration platform. We created Skyvia. Since that day, the platform delivered value to thousands of customers. Geography-wise, we work with the whole world, but the majority of our customers are still from the USA, other English-speaking countries, and Europe. So I guess now it's the best time to proceed to the demo of the platform. Let me start sharing my screen so you could see it. Okay, now I guess you can see my screen now. This is Devart's website, and this is the list of customers if you are interested to learn more about who we work with. This is Skyvia's website, and I would like to start with the connectors list as the list of all the connectors we have, and the frequency of delivery is one of our competitive advantages. These are all the apps and databases and other connectors that we have supported as of today. We release a few connectors every single month, so we have now more than 100 of them, but we will have more in the future. So this is the platform, and let's start from the basics. As you can see here, Skyvia allows you to create several workspaces. So every single workspace has its settings, and if you like, you can go to the settings section here, and you can add more users to the same workspace. You can grant certain rights to certain people so that they could have a certain, so to say, level of access to this or that product of Skyvia or package. So let's go to the workspace itself. So this is the, in fact, user interface of the product or the platform. Here you can see the full list of the products that we have under the roof. So these are backup, connect, query, and of course integration. So let's start from the backup, I guess. The backup product was designed to easily and automatically back up your cloud app data, such as CRMs, accounting tools, ERPs, e-commerce, project management tools, and so on. So the top reasons why our customers subscribe to the backup service backup products are, first of all, a requirement of their corporate policy. When companies become mature enough, they start caring about their data security. The second is that they want to get their ISO or get a SOC to audit. So a corporate backup and recovery policy is a must to get a green light here. And the third, they suffered from data loss in the past. So the top reasons of the data loss are it's bad code, migration error, human error, integration error, malicious intent, or even their cloud apps failure. For instance, there is no CRM in the whole world that can give you 100% data security guarantee. Unfortunately, sometimes our customers tell us that they lost some or even all of their data because their cloud app was down. So this happens, and to be on the safe side, they just do snapshots regularly and then can restore them if anything happens. So other than that, we also recommend our integration product customers to make regular backups of their cloud apps data before they run new integration packages, so that even if they made a mistake while configuring their package, they can quickly restore their data and try again. So at the end of the day, the backup product is like health insurance. You never want to use it, but when something goes wrong, you're happy that you were so forward thinking back then. So let's talk about how the backup product works. Let's open the backup here. In order to create your first connector to your cloud app, just hit add new here. Here you can see the full list of all the cloud app connectors that are supported for the backup product so far. You can, for instance, select Salesforce, and you can see that we have a few authentication methods, auth 2.0, or just username and password. You can select environment, so on and so forth. We recommend to use auth token. I already created a connection to my backup, so I can just select it from the list here. Let's say, let's just take, for example, the Dynamics instance. Okay, so we have just read data through Dynamics' API, and we received the result here, meaning that we can see here all the tables, objects that are available through their API. So we can either select all of the objects that we can see here and include them to one snapshot, or we can uncheck this box and select just one certain object or several objects and do a backup just of this object. We can even go deeper into details, and here we can configure the filtering option, the filter condition for this backup package. On the left side of the screen, you can see that we can uncheck certain columns if we don't want to include them to the snapshot, or we can leave it as it is, and all the columns that are in the source will be included to the snapshot. So let's try to create the first filter condition here. We can we should hit plus here, and then we should select the column, the parameter by which we will be filtering, in fact. So we can, let's say we want to select just records with website URL is not null. Okay, so if you can see here that we can create even group condition with and an or logical operator, which of course allows you to create quite a powerful filtering options here. You can create as many condition and groups as you need, as your task requires. So let's keep it simple and skip creating filtering, just look up just one object. So this is the step where we can configure the scheduling option for our backup package. So we can just disable it or enable, and we can configure the backup to run at a certain time every day, up to once per day. That's basically it. We just save the backup and it's ready. Once we hit run, Skyvia will start reading data from the Dynamics instance, from the cloud source, and backing up this data, creating a snapshot in our own Azure data center, which is located in California. But let me show you how it looks when you already have some created backups and snapshots. Let's select one from the list here. Okay, let's take this one. Okay, if we create snapshot lists, we can see that we have quite a few snapshots here. We can see how many records we actually backed up and how many of them were modified and were there any errors. We can open the snapshot and we can even compare this snapshot with the previous one. We can see what were the reasons of the failures, if any, and these syntax of these errors are returned as they are, so you can just go and fix this error, meaning fix this and do the snapshot, run the backup and do the snapshot again to back up all the data. So we can even see the real data here. So if we open one of the tables here, we can see that the data is available, in fact. So we can even dive deeper and open a certain record, and see even its relations. So you'll see here the details of the record and the relations. Speaking from the restoration capability, we can restore just one record by selecting one of these DML statements, or we can restore the whole object, the whole table. In our example, it's count, or we can select everything and restore the whole snapshot. This is the activity section where we can, so it's kind of logged, so we can see what was going on with your snapshots. So that's pretty much all about the backup product. So I guess it's a high time we move to the Connect. So the Connect product, in fact, is we call it API as a service solution. The Connect product, in fact, allows you to create OData endpoint or SQL endpoint to the cloud app or database or data warehouse. So sure thing, such service can be developed manually, but for that you would need to invest into the development workforce, then find a hosting, then register domain, obtain certificate, deploy, administer, and maintain the app, care about security, etc., etc. But Connect product covers everything above mentioned. It's very easy to start using and maintaining it moving forward. So I'm going to show you how it looks. So there are, in fact, two modes. It's simple and advanced one. Let's stick to the simple here. Here you can see the list of all the connectors that I created, and I can pick up one and create an endpoint to this connector. Let's take again Dynamics instance, for example. Now we're checking and connecting to the Dynamics instance. Okay, we again can see all the objects that are available through their API. We can select just one object or all of them, or a few objects from the list. Then we go to the next step. Here we can configure security, if any. So we can leave it public, meaning this endpoint public, or we can restrict access to this endpoint from certain IP addresses. We can even create a certain user. Let's say user's name is Dmitry, and passes. Okay, let me just pass. I'll let it. So save. Next step. Test all data. Here we can specify the OData version if needed. So this can be either version 1 to 3 or version 4 or just OData last. And this is a very important thing. Here you can specify the endpoint mode. So this can be either read-only or read-write. If it's read-only, you can just expose the data through the OData protocol. But if it's read-write, you can even change data if you like, meaning from the source to which you passed your endpoint. So now we have our endpoint URL. I'm sorry, I think someone is wants to join. Okay. Now we can see this endpoint, and we can we can copy it, and we can go and maybe pass just to the browser, and we can see that it's restricted because we configured security, and the password is pass, and login, and we can see that and we can see that the password is wrong for some reason. Okay, now it's correct. We can see that we are connected to the accounts table through OData. That's basically it. This is the model, and here you can see the log, meaning that you will be able to see the log of, the log of your usage, of your Connect's usage. Let me show you how it looks when you have some traffic there. I'll open here endpoints, and here I can find one. Okay, so we can see some track record here, and we can see that we transferred some data through the endpoint and the method that we used. But actually, this one is the SQL endpoint, which one, and I wanted to show this endpoint separately. So in order to start configuring your SQL endpoint, go to Connect, and here click SQL. So again, select the cloud app to which you want the connection to be configured. Again, public or restrict to certain IP addresses if needed. Then next up, and name your endpoint, SQL, and save it. So we can see that your endpoint is ready, but if you like, you can connect to one of the SQL API clients right away, right from the UI of Skyvia platform. Here you can see that you can connect to other net installation provider or DBC, or even Google Data Studio directly. So let's try to connect to Google Data Studio. We just need to specify the endpoint URL and URL type, and username and password if we specify them at the very beginning. Now we can see that we are inside the Google Data Studio, and from here we can create a dashboard or report based on the data that is retrieved from the Dynamics CRM, from my Dynamics instance. So as you can understand now, so the main use case of utilizing the SQL endpoint for in junction with the Google Data Studio is when you want to build dashboards based on your cloud app or database data. And it will be streamed directly, so without the need of, I don't know, collecting data and records in some database or data warehouse. So this can be streamed directly, so to say. So let's go back to the cloud app, to the platform. So I guess it's a high time we move on to the query. Query is it's a pretty simple yet pretty powerful query builder. It allows you to build queries against a database or even your cloud app directly. And let me show you how it works. There are basically two options, Builder and SQL. Let's stick to Builder, as this is the simplest one. So this is the app, and here on this drop-down list, we can select one of the connectors. So let's again select Dynamics. Now we are connecting to the source. So as you can see here, we can use simple drag and drop functionality to build a query like this. So we have just moved account to this field, and we can execute, and we can see the accounts right here, like this. And we can even see it in the SQL-like language. If we switch to the SQL mode, we can write a code here. If you know SQL, if you can code using SQL, you can also perform mass delete and mass update operation with the query tool. So it's pretty useful if your cloud app doesn't support the mass update or mass delete inside the user interface. So you can do that with query. So you can even save the query here. If you can hit save, test query webinar, you can save it here. You can go to either Google Spreadsheet or Microsoft Excel file, connect to the add-on named Skyvia query, go to gallery section, and here let's try to find our saved query. Okay, here you are. Let's select the query and run it. So now we are building an SQL query from Google Spreadsheet, from the add-on of Skyvia, through the dynamic CRM, and we will get the result right here. Okay, I guess we're having someone knocking the door. Okay. As you can see, we have just retrieved the name of the columns, and now we're retrieving data. Okay, so the query was executed successfully. I think that I just don't have any data. Oh, okay, so it's here. It is here, all the data that I actually have in my dynamic instance. Well, that's it about the query. Pretty handy tool. For instance, you can also, if you don't know, for instance, how many accounts are there in your instance, you can just count it using a query tool. Let's delete this query. Let's drag and drop again. And here, let's select the count function. Okay, how many? Okay, so I think we have 54 accounts in my Dynamics test connection instance. Well, let's move on to the last, but I would say not the least, our flagship product, the integration, His Majesty, I would say. The integration has 4 different integration types, and these are replication, synchronization, export, and import. Let's start from the replication. So the replication is, in fact, the easiest way of how you can create a full replica of your cloud app data in a database or data warehouse. So it's always in one direction and always from cloud app to database or data warehouse. Just we know that this is the main use case of how we can technically configure your integration within the replication type. So in order to connect to your cloud app, just select it from the list here. Let's select again account. You can select the database or data warehouse to which you want this data to be replicated. You can create a new one. So this is the full list of all the databases and data warehouses supported for the replication type. So let's select this Google BigQuery connection. So there are a few options inside the replication type. Drop tables is for dropping tables if you have something stored, meaning database or records inside your database or data warehouse. So No need to go and delete something manually. The create tables option was designed for creating tables for you. So again, no need to go to the database and create tables and everything. You can just hit create tables and we will create tables during the first replication run for you. And we will even keep the relations between those tables in the target database or data warehouse. The incremental updates option means that we won't be running all the records every single time you run the package, but we will replicate only the newly created records since the previous package run. Let's talk a bit about the scheduling option. Every single package or integration type of the integration product can be configured to run automatically. You can specify the scheduling and the package can run on a certain day of the month, week, daily, or recur every few hours or even minutes on better pricing plan starting from the professional. So this can be near real-time data replication if you need such frequency. So let's name our replication package. Let's create it. So it's ready. Once we hit run, we'll start reading data from Dynamics and writing it to the Google BigQuery instance. So let me show you how it looks when you have already some replication actions inside your replication package. Okay, so you can see here that in the monitor section, we can derive few replication that I did in the past. I can open any of these runs and can see details, how many records actually were added, how many records were updated, etc., etc. There's also a log if you need it. You can see more details about what was going on with your application packages. So now let's move on to the sync package. By the way, let's speak about the use cases of the replication package and why would you in fact need the replication. So the main two use cases of utilizing the replication packages by our customers are BI and report. So in other words, data visualization, and also data warehousing for data analysis purposes, with sometimes even data aggregation. So customers collect cloud data from various sources in the database or data warehouse, and then they build analytics, or they keep their database or the warehouses updated in order to connect it as a source for building dashboards and BI tools. In fact, you can even archive data from your cloud app data in some database if needed. So this can be any use case around pushing records from cloud app to database or data warehouse. So let's move on to the sync. The sync package allows you to configure a bidirectional data loading between cloud apps, database, and cloud and database. So in fact, any direction is supported, but it always bidirectional. You can even select one cloud app like HubSpot if you, for instance, you have your marketing data there, and a CRM data stored in Dynamics. And let's say you want to sync contacts. Let's find, by the way, speaking from a mapping feature, we support one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-one. Let's support contacts from the source type, and then something like, which is also should be called like a contact in Dynamics. I guess that's it. We then go to the next tab. Then we have to map from source to target. As you can see, the columns with the same name are mapped automatically, but if we fail to find a corresponding name, we have to map manually. So we support column-to-column mapping, constant expression mapping with mathematical string, date type function, target and source lookups. Okay, let's map first name with, oh no, the first name and last name. Last name. Okay, let's pretend that this looks good and everything is mapped, just not to waste time. Then we go to target to source, and then we map the fields back. So let's try to find the last name, colon, and map it. Okay, last name. So it's mapped. We just save the package, save the document, sorry. And if we want, for instance, to add more tasks to the same package, meaning if we want to, I don't know, map deals, opportunities, or accounts or companies, we can hit add new and add more tasks here. Okay. Again, like with the replication, the sync package can be scheduled. So the sync package is ready. We can run it if we need. So let's talk a bit about the use cases where the sync package could be realized. So first of all, of course, you can create an automated bidirectional data integration between different sources upon your business need. For instance, you can sync subscribers of, I don't know, MailChimp, for instance, with contacts of your CRM, so that you, once you have a new contact in CRM, this change is automatically reflected. So a new contact is added to the subscribers list on the MailChimp side. So as you may imagine, there can be quite a lot of business use cases that can be solved with the sync integration type. For instance, yeah, one of the top use cases is syncing to orgs. We have a lot of customers that sync to orgs, meaning that they have same database, they can sync contacts, but have different deals, different accounts, and everything else is different, but contacts could be the same. And you can configure this with the sync package. Well, let's move on to the export package, export type. So export was designed for exporting data from a cloud app or database in a CSV file. As a target type, so let's select the cloud app. And as a target type, you can select CSV and download the file manually, meaning right from the browser, you'll have a link. Or you can automatically upload the resulting CSV file to one of the supported file storages, such as Amazon, Box, Dropbox, and others. So I have already pre-created file storage here. Here we can specify the folder to which we'll be uploading the file, the resulting CSV file. Let's select this one. And here you can select the code page for the resulting CSV file. Text export. And like with the sync package, we have to create the first task to let Skyvia know which fields you want to export. You can select either simple or advanced mode. You can even execute command or execute a query. You can specify the target file name. This is needed in cases when the system that will be taking those CSV files from the file storages understands just a certain file name format. So for this use case, you can specify the target file name here. And you can also compress the type. You can compress the file to zip or gzip, or just leave it as it is. So let's select again account, and you can, like in the backup, you can uncheck certain columns from the left. You can create a filter condition. And basically that's it. We can create the package and we can save it and run. Okay, so now we're reading the data from the Dynamics Test Connection instance and creating a CSV file and uploading the file to my Google Drive. So let's speak about the use cases of utilizing such a integration type. Say you want to send certain data to a few different vendors. That's a pretty common use case. You can automate the process so that Skyvia will be creating the files in accordance with your requirements and upload them to the file storages of your vendors. Or say you want to import your data from your CRM down to your ERP in case the ERP is not supported by us or other modern tool. You can do such an integration manually using CSV as a man in the middle solution, connecting new apps with some maybe old-fashioned ERP that is not supported by integration tools. And finally, the import type. Let's move on to the import. So import was designed for one-way integration only. So this is the most advanced integration type, as it allows selecting as a source a CSV file or a database or a cloud app. You can again select CSV files from one of the supported file storages and take them automatically and import in a certain logic to your database or your cloud app. Let's select database as an example. Let's select here some CRM. Let's select HubSpot as a CRM here. Let's add our first task here. So first of all, we should select the source. Let it be deals, for example. Again, we can use advanced mode if needed. And we here, as well as in the backup and the export, and we can create the filter condition with group condition if we need more advanced filtering options, if you want to skip some records. This is pretty handy if you have like tons of data in your source and you don't want all the tables to be imported or replicated in case of replication. So now we select the target definition, meaning to which table we will be importing these records. And of course, it's going to be deals again. And here we can select the operation, the DML statements, insert, update, or absurd. And here comes the mapping. Let's try to find the corresponding field, corresponding column. Okay, I guess that's it. We can save the import package and it's ready, and we can add more tasks to the same package and run them simultaneously. And by the way, there is no limit on the integration packages you can create, so you can create as many packages as you need, and as many tasks as you need within one package. So I would also like to stress about the mapping of the import package. As you can see here, as well as with the sync, we support column, constant expression, target, and source lookup. So speaking about the expression mapping, it supports mathematical, string, datetime, data type conversion, string functions, etc. So this can be either some simple transformation while you're integrating your data up to complex ones upon your need. So let's talk about the use cases where you could potentially need the import package. For instance, you want to return results of analytics back to your cloud source. For instance, lead scoring, you have some complex analytics inside your data warehouse and combine data with data from various sources, and then you want to return this result back to your CRM. So import package would be the perfect choice because import can write data directly to the cloud app, for instance, Salesforce. So you can do analytic stuff on the back end and then return the result of this work back to the Salesforce. Another one use case, which is also pretty popular, is integration of financial or other ERP data with CRM data. Or one-way data integration from your marketing source, such as HubSpot, with your CRM, such as Dynamics, like in our case. For instance, you want to see the whole user funnel. You can create such an import package and then see the whole funnel starting from top down to the closed deals or lost deals. You can also use import as a universal connector for your software, meaning that you may have some database and you can configure in per package, so it will be sending writing data to some other app or other database. Or you can connect suppliers' data and your cloud application, or you can integrate other orders. For instance, you can integrate orders between your, let's say, Shopify instance and your CRM in the logic that once an order is created, the change is reflected to the CRM and the new order is created there. Let's see who is okay. Approved. Well, that's pretty much all about the import package and the integration product as it is. Let's speak about the pricing a little bit, just for you to know how we charge our customers and how much this costs. So the data integration and the pricing of data integration differs mostly on the number of records you integrate per 1 month, and also the frequency of your schedules. So number of records and number of and the frequency of the schedule packages, and also the number of packages you can schedule for automatic execution. Just we know that we count only changed records. So for instance, you run a replication package with incremental updates, so we won't count those records that we haven't in fact integrated. So the backup product and its pricing based on the amount of storage that you will have for your snapshots. For instance, your cloud app takes like one gigabyte of storage. So if you stick to the standard tier, you'll have a chance to create 20 snapshots of your cloud app. And also, I think I almost forgot to mention a very important thing about the backup. Let's go to the account settings here. You can, within the backup product, I just wanted to mention that within the backup product, you can specify your deletion options in the way that if you hit the limit of your storage, the older snapshots will be deleted automatically. So there is no need to log in every single time you want to delete your old snapshot. You can configure Skyvia the way we will be doing that for you. So the query is basically it's a simple product, and if you purchase the paid version, you will just have limited runs and limited number of saved queries and unlimited traffic as well. So the Connect product differs on the traffic you actually have per one billing cycle, meaning that the traffic of data that you can get when you address it through the endpoint. So I guess this is it about the integration product and general platform overview. I think Sergey has something to say about our newest types, which are, let me log in back to my workspace here. The newest types, data flow and control flow. So Sergey, please tell the guys about the data flow and control flow.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
So let me share my screen and show.
Okay, let me stop sharing mine. Okay, done.
I am starting to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so our newest integration kinds are data flow and control flow. So these are designer-based integration kinds. So like in enterprise solutions, like in Boomi, Talent, etc. Data flow integration went out of beta status, so it was released today. So let's show how it is configured. So in data integration, you configure flow of data on a diagram. First, on a diagram you add components, you configure links between them. This determines how records are loaded. First, we need to add source component. It queries record from the data source. In source component, you can select any of your connections that you created on Skyvia or create a new one if necessary. After this, you select what action to perform in source component to query the data. So let me probably select Salesforce. It is more appropriate for demonstration. For Salesforce, we have more actions, so we can execute SQL command here. We can build query visually, like we did in query. We also can run a native Salesforce report. So if you have any reports in your Salesforce, we can just select a report here and load data from this report. So let's just query all data from contact object, for example. We can also preview the set of columns that are queried. After this, we can add transformation components to the data flow to perform various transformations. So split component just splits the flow of records into multiple flows, so you can load data from one source into multiple targets, etc. Conditional split splits flow depending on some conditions on record fields. So here we can, there's a split, sorry, I meant to add conditional split here. Here you can create conditional outputs and specify conditions for them. So using our expression editor, using the same functions, operators, etc., that are used in our expression mapping, and this condition may access properties that are available in the input of this component and variables of the package. Here you can create multiple conditional outputs to which records will be redirected depending if they match certain condition. Then we have other components, so row count components to count the number of records that passed through this component and store the result in a variable. And lookup component to query data from another data source based on input. So here, for example, we can select another connection. Like BigCommerce, we can select an action to query data, either an SQL command here or lookup action, where you can select. So simply select the corresponding table to search matching record, and here you can set up which columns you to use for matching and which columns to query from the lookup data source. And after this, you can configure mapping of the corresponding parameters corresponding to the key columns to source. Here in the mapping, you can just select an input column or specify a complex expression to calculate the result to match to this lookup column, etc. So depending on the lookup behavior, we either fill records with no matches with nulls and direct them to main output, or direct them to error output. And we can add more transformations. So extend component adds calculated columns to the result, to the set of columns, so to the scope. Value component selects a value of some of the columns, which you can select which kind of value to select, and it stores it in a variable. Data flow has a set of parameters that you can create and variables. The difference is that parameter values are stored between data flow runs, so you can run data flow, store some value in a parameter, and it will be available during the next run of the data flow. Variables are available only within the data flow run, so you can so you can fill this variable with a value using either value component or row count component and use it within this run further. To configure data flow, you also need to configure its result settings. You need to calculate the number of success records and error records. And by the way, in the end of data flow, usually we load records to some target where we select again a connection to load data to. We select an action to apply, either insert, update, delete records, or execute custom SQL command for databases. And here we can write the command. So let's select a table. We have the target table columns the parameters for the insert action, and here we configure mapping for them. We specify which input columns to load into this column, etc. So we need to specify mapping for all the columns. If columns have the same names in source and target, we can use auto mapping, and as we can see, it found columns with the same name and mapped them automatically. Here we also can either use just a source column, or specify a constant, or specify an expression here. So that's all about. And let's proceed to the result settings. The result settings determine what values will be displayed as the number of success records and error records. Since data flow can be complex, it can have multiple targets, and data from one target can be loaded further, so to another target, etc. So you, for example, you can query some values from some auto-generated values from one target and load it further to another target. You can load records from error outputs to some different target or to log, and this makes a calculation of success and error rows a complex process. So we let user determine what records consider as success records and what records consider as error records. So usually user just adds row count components to the necessary place of the data flow. For example, row count for success and error records. And then as row counts store data, store the number of records in the specified variables. So let's create success and errors variables. And then simply, so in a simple case, we just write the name of these variables here. And the result of this data flow will display the number of the corresponding numbers. In case of multiple targets, you can sum these variables or perform other mathematical operations here. So like this. And let's show another feature. In data flows, you can also create log connections. So these connections will load data to CSV files with the specified columns. So you can create schema of log and, if necessary, load data to it. And this log will be available after data flow was executed. So let's show an example data flow here. So one of our users had such use case when he needed to load data from the database to Zoho CRM, and if a record existed in Zoho CRM, the user needed to update only certain fields, and if records didn't exist, user needed to load data to insert a record with more fields mapped. If the same fields need to be mapped, this task can be solved, for example, with our import tool with its absurd operation. But in case if different fields needs to be mapped for different operations, it probably will be better to load data with data flow. So what this data flow does, first it loads data from the SQL server, and it loads only new record. So it has parameter max created date, which stores the max created date of the of records loaded in the previous run. So we count the number of rows loaded. We query. We check if the record exists via lookup. We query the record ID from Zoho CRM if such record exists. If a record exists, we will obtain the ID, and if record doesn't exist in Zoho in target, then the ID is filled with the ID column is filled with null. Then we store the max created date, max date of records of record in source with a value component to our variable having the same name as parameter, and then we split records based on whether the ID is null. If ID is null, the record is sent to insert output, and if record if the record ID queried from Zoho is not null, the record is sent to the default output. And depending on this output, we perform either insert operation via target component or update operation. And we count the success records finally. If we insert data to Zoho, we also query the result ID from Zoho, and we update this record back in our source Azure database, and we assign it the corresponding ID from Salesforce. Error records, so if a record failed to insert or failed to update, are written to logs. We have a name, so to determine what records we write, and error message. So they are written to log. Next time package, so data flow will remember the max created date of records loaded the previous time, and in source we check we query only records more than this stored time of last record update in the previous time. So in this case, so this is how we query only new records each data flow run. So I think that's all about our data flow. So we can see how the results of data flow looks. So here you can see how many records we loaded successfully, how many records failed, and you can download logs or view them in the browser. And log tab allows you to view runs for the specified period. So monitor tab shows you last 5 runs of the package, and log tab shows you runs for the specified period. I think this is all about data flow. I also may show you how I configured the result settings. With this row counts component counts records successfully loaded into Zoho and stores them in the variables, and for error records we simply subtract these values from the number of total rows counted by this row count component. Let's proceed to control flow. Control flow allows you to implement logics in your integration. It allows running multiple data flows, and it allows you to run these data flows one after another it allows you to perform some checks. To check some conditions which were based on variables modified by a data flow. For example, if too many records failed, we can check number of failed records in a condition in an if component and perform some actions. So like fail the control flow if too many records more than error threshold were failed, etc. So as for the components, it has the following components. Core components determine determine control flow execution. You can use if component for creating conditional logics. You can use parallel component to run multiple control flows in parallel. Exception fails the control flow completely. Stops control flow whenever it's reached. Try catch allows you to perform error processing. So if an exception occurred inside try catch component, then the catch branch is executed. And action components directly interact with data sources or modify variables. So action component can run various action against data sources. So you select a connection and you select an action to perform either. So for example, you can insert records into database, you can execute custom SQL command in action, you can perform test connection, so whether the connection is whether the connection is correctly configured, and you can connect to this data source. And you can set variables via set variables component. And data flow component performs data flow, which you open it and configure data flow as I showed you in about the data flow product. So kind of packages. So how control flow can be used? So it can be used to perform certain data flows in specific orders. It can be used to perform certain actions before and after data flow. For example, you can create tables in target database before loading data into them, or you can check if such tables exist via SQL command. Place the result of this check into variable and then perform some actions depending on this variable. Etc. You can implement error logic. So if your data flow fails, what to do? So I think that's all variants. So that's what I wanted to show about data flow.